Are you ready to unlock the full potential of AI in your real estate business? Today, we're diving into the secrets that could transform your investment strategy and give you a competitive edge. In this episode, you'll learn how to leverage AI to automate intelligence, enhance your decision making, and stay ahead of the competition. We'll explore practical use cases from predictive analytics to creating dashboards that reveal hidden insights in your data. If you find value in this content, please give us a like and subscribe and stay updated with the latest strategies. Let's get started. Michelle Hamilton joins me here today. We're going to have you hit her up on LinkedIn. So head over to find her at Michelle-Hamilton-AI. That's going to be a clickable link in the show notes to make it really easy for everybody and make those connections. Really appreciate your time here, Michelle. And well, your LinkedIn profile kind of says it all. We're going to be talking about AI, particularly how larger, whether it's your syndicators, multifamily investors, what have you, how people can make better use of AI in their real estate investing business. I appreciate your time here today.
Jack, I'm really glad to be here. Although I'm working in AI, I come from 30 years of working in commercial real estate. So this is my absolute passion, is the built environment.
Well, okay, I think let's just face fact. Most people are not even scratching the surface of what AI is capable of at this point. I think it's fair to say most people even think that it's just a chat window. They go in and they ask a couple questions, they get a couple answers, and then off they go. Like, what are you seeing in the corporate world or in the larger firms, commercial firms, on adoption and how they might be making better use of this and actually getting some value of this technology?
I love that you're starting there because I do find so many people use AI like a hyper Google, and that I'm not even sure that scratches the surface, but it is the comfort level where most people start. And the fact that you asked about adoption, I actually lead a global division of an AI company that's been around since 2013 in adoption and change management. And so my job is actually to work with enterprise mid-market size clients to help them adopt an AI first strategy, just using the tools that are probably being underused, or the tools that they just gave them an IT-based spreadsheet and said, here you go, here's the instructions, good luck. And I have found through several years of coaching firms that it is a human first problem. It is not necessarily a technology problem. It is meeting people where they're at with the language that they are already comfortable using.
I was going to ask you about that human first or human centered AI adoption. Could you kind of dive a little bit into that? What do you mean by that? And how do you lead with it?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you think about an organization, generally there are going to be multiple divisions, departments. And if we are approaching AI adoption with a human first perspective, the idea is actually a bottom up adoption. It is understanding all of the KPIs of your individual divisions, departments, key leaders, and the contributors themselves. What are they tasked with doing in order to drive business forward, be successful, but really lean into predictive analytics and the history of the organization? But how are you doing that in a language that is understandable and doesn't feel overwhelming? Because I don't know about you, but there are days where AI, to me, even still feels overwhelming how quickly things are rolling out.
It's almost a full-time job to stay on top of things.
It is.
The amount of material that's likely like playing on I have a screen dedicated to just YouTube and breaking news, essentially, just to stay on top of this and what's happening next. And I think that's possibly one of the issues that you're experiencing. At any given moment, there's a buzzword every week, whether it's OpenClaw one week and now it's pay-per-click this week, and then it's just the next thing. And then people are like, it's like jumping into rapids. When do you jump in and you feel like you're going to get swept away?
Absolutely. And I generally recommend that organizations and individuals themselves think about a single tool that they are interested in investing in. And when I say investing, you should be paying for AI tools that your company is going to be using. But If you try to spread out the money, throw money against the wall and hope that some AI tool is going to work, you're going to end up over investing. But here's the catch. Indeed, you need to invest in a tool, but then more importantly, you need to invest in your people and truly give them the training that they need in order to be able to use that tool. Not like hyper Google, not frustratingly coming back with all of the hallucinations that I hear about, but having an actual strategy for how to use the product for their particular deliverables and KPIs. And so to me, it is a people first problem, but it is also one where you can really zero in and then support people from there. Then you can begin adding in additional third party tools, a secondary large language model. I'm a big fan of using multiple large language models to compare and contrast information from, but it does not matter what your role is. You actually need the foundational training of getting the model to understand not only exactly what you want and what you're trying to do, but also understand the rules of the road for your branding, your brand standards, the acceptable voice, and how are you also asking the model to cite itself, provide hyperlinked bibliographies of every bit of detail and fact that it is coming back to? Because, Jack, you and I both know it sounds amazing. And then once you start digging in deep, sometimes it's not true. So you have to actually learn, and there are some great strategies for getting the model to absolutely provide an absolute truth.
I was going to ask you, and you kind of answered it to a certain extent, is that I'm frankly seeing a lot of businesses, a lot of corporations, they subscribe to whatever tool, and they frankly aren't seeing that return on that investment that they probably could unlock based on what you're talking about. Is, I've worked with a lot of corporations, as a cog in the wheel, and that was the typical MO, right? They throw a tool at it, they make the investment, and then they just hope for the best,
Right.
as if the employees are just going to figure it out.
Here's my favorite analogy for that, because I've had the great benefit of working with some of our country's largest construction firms and providing them their AI training. And if you had a construction site and your team arrived, they had never been trained on any of the tools, and you simply said to them, build a building. Well, they'd kind of all get together and maybe try to build a building, but probably not. And would it be safe? Would it have a strong foundation? And can you count on it living for the lifetime of the inhabitants? No. If you need people with training on how to use tools to build a building, believe me, something as important as increasing AI use and AI strategy within an organization does take actual training. And I'm not talking IT training. I'm not talking about words that confuse people. This is strategic business training. And if we think about, investment and real estate, how are you working with AI to move your investments and your investment strategy forward through a really unique combination of really talking to the AI in the appropriate voice and giving it the information that it needs up front?
I've been building a number of things lately, thankfully, with AI, and I've told people that, we're only really restricted by someone's imagination at this point. However, I sometimes find that small business owners are just so close to the problem that I don't want to say lack imagination, but they might not see a path to solving it. Could you kind of like break down, like in the real estate world, some actual use cases that you've seen people apply AI that would move the needle and make a huge difference?
Absolutely. So I happen to be working with a couple of large real estate property management firms at the moment, and they had me actually start out by doing a team-wide training, 60 to 100 people in a room. We went through use cases, but what I loved, in particular, one of my firms that I'm working with, they had a group of resistant users, those that maybe were closer to retirement who were saying, I don't want to use AI for my job. They were saying, you're going to be using AI for your job. So they had me do a specialized onboarding training for them where we actually just did fun, interactive activities that everybody could use for their everyday life. But then I tied each of those to now here are 10 business use cases of how you can follow this same step by step methodology to simply transfer this to your job as either the broker, the site superintendent, whatever that might be. We were able to tie all of those strategies and use cases back to how you can use it, to plan a vacation with your partner to Italy and how to plan for the acquisition of a piece of land.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring up that older population, but I've heard this time and time again where it's not necessarily that AI is going to replace you, but you will likely get replaced by somebody who is using these tools.
Exactly. Boy, you and I are really aligned on that, Jack. I actually am not here to say that AI will not replace some jobs. We've seen evidence of that. We are also seeing the creation of some incredible, but I will tell you, I take very seriously. My job is to train my clients to be the best AI users in the room and to help move their business forward. So if we are thinking back to investment again, we are thinking about every developer's, biggest driver is getting to the deal before the broker or the competitor does. How are you using AI to automate some intelligence, bring back reports to you on a daily basis while you're sleeping so that you are at the table before your competitors? I mean, there's even great ways to work around some of the login systems. Most of the good data, the best data anyway, does sit behind paywalls. And the company that I work for actually builds out agentic AI models that log in as you. And so it is you, it is just your agent. And it is gathering and pulling together full scale reporting for you so that you know day in and day out how to move forward, how to make decisions, and how to really lean into available data as well as pay data in order to inform you moving forward.
This is one of those things, and it is the best analogy that I've been able to come up with. And when I'm engaged in any kind of project like this, I've told people that I can help you build your Iron Man suit. But
Right.
I still need the human in the middle, and I can free up that time to make those human connections. We're still going to be an analog world. We just want to amplify what you're really good at, and being really good at the mundane everyday tasks. That's what we got to get off your plate. And so you can actually make those human connections and do what we're strived or built to do.
Gosh, you are really touching on a point for me, Jack, that is really important is that human to human interaction. And one of the biggest mistakes I saw in 2025 were some really large organizations doing mass layoffs because they assumed they were bringing these AI tools in that would just replace the entire team. We all know how expensive it is to onboard an employee. Let me tell you how much money was wasted when they thought that their company had not originally been a people company that needed humans and humans in the loop, the humans to orchestrate the knowledge worker that is their AI companion, but also the humans to do what you and I are doing, which is sitting and having a conversation, connecting, networking, talking about how can we continue to grow and connect as humans while we have technology working by our side. Because frankly, we've all, found ourselves 8 or 10 hours a day anymore, just stuck in front of a screen. You've stopped talking to your colleagues. You've stopped meeting with your clients over a coffee. Everything has to be on Zoom. Everything has to be on a keyboard. And I say this is an amazing opportunity to really recreate some human connection, but it does take some strategy. And I want people to think about always the first place I suggest consumers and business users alike begin. If something takes you more than 15 minutes and you repeat it more than twice a week, it is an ideal prime candidate for bringing AI into that loop and assigning the AI a part and piece of that.
Just to remind everybody, we're talking to Michelle Hamilton, and you can find and connect with her on LinkedIn. I'm going to have that as a clickable link in the show notes. If you found some value in what we're chatting about so far, do us a favor, share this with one of your friends. If you're watching us on YouTube, give us a like and subscribe. So you kind of made me smile when you said, AI is replacing teams, and we're seeing, To be honest, I don't know if you believe what I do on this one. I think we're using AI as a cover at this point. You know, some of these companies are using AI as the reason we're letting people go. However, I don't know if that's necessarily the case. You know, I'm going to pick on Jack Dorsey for an example. There was a number of mergers there that happened, and there was redundancies that they never addressed up until recently. But we got this announcement that thanks to AI, and we're going to let some of these people go. But then I also know some development teams where there were some layoffs associated with it, and some of those people are now getting called back to these jobs because they are realizing that AI, like you mentioned, hallucinations, run off the rails. It doesn't produce exactly, they need those orchestrators in order to work with. So we're seeing a lot of some of these people getting hired back on just in a different capacity and different roles.
And I think that especially comes true if you are a data company, somebody that relies on really good quality data to help you make decisions and move forward. And the importance of actually understanding how to use an AI-based data sheet and data integration is an incredibly strategic move for any organization that wants to make sense of their historic tribal knowledge to help them determine how to move forward and how to weather through the ups and downs of the economy. What I love is that AI, given the opportunity and given the human in the loop to oversee it, can read thousands of data points in just moments. You can then think of it as a I'd like to talk to my spreadsheet of 10,000 data points and begin to ask it to help me predict moving forward, assess where there was an issue, model where is my team performing well, where should we consider making some improvements. It is really a data informed business process, and most companies are very heavy in their data. AI and data are absolutely phenomenal together, but it historically has not been one that you could necessarily trust. Now, with some of the more advanced models and with teams who build out models just for your data, absolutely, that is a place where you're going to really be able to turn that information into a very powerful tool that can help your sales people, your brokers, your investors really understand what to do next.
You kind of touched on that earlier. You know, you mentioned KPIs, establishing some of these things. When it comes to even small business owners, you're sitting on a ton of data, and it gives us an opportunity to unlock some of those, create dashboards that we might not have had access to before, and do a few things to establish, to have some insight that you haven't had up until now. It's just really kind of bringing that level of functionality more and more down to the everyday business owner.
Another place that I'm seeing a lot of success is in thinking about how the generative, data is really more of a predictive AI model. If we are thinking about the Gen AI, generative AI use case, which is what most people think of when they think of AI, here's what I would love for your audience to be thinking about. If this was just a conversation and this was a smart intern that joined your organization, well, if you were to hand her or him a 250-page document that was a full assessment of a piece of land or an investment opportunity and just simply said to them, write me a summary, well, they would do the best they could. They would copiously read every single page, and I can guarantee you it would have nothing to do with the summary you actually wanted. Now, if you had said to your smart intern, if you had said to it a who, what, where, when, why, how, tell it everything you know and everything you want to know, and then tell it how you want that delivered to you. Do you like a long explanation? Do you want it in bullet points? Do you want it in a Word doc, a PDF, or loaded to your Google Docs? You decide, but think of it as your smart intern. It is absolutely going to be able to work with you by understanding what you are requesting. But the more you tell it and the more detailed you are, the better you can expect your results to be immediately.
This is something that I was hoping we were going to get into regarding context and establishing some of those rules and work ahead of time. I've run into a number of situations where that's actually where things are falling apart for a lot of people, where they expect it to magically produce what they're looking for. And instead of, there's a world of difference if we give AI, work in a project, for example, give AI some starting points and even examples of the type of finished work we want. Could you talk a little bit about just prepping your workspace, for lack of a better way of?
No, I actually love that because it's not a step that most people think of. So I'm so glad that you're aware of that. Let's just use ChatGPT because it's sort of the Kleenex of AI. Within ChatGPT, you actually have the option of setting up project folders. A project folder is like having a smart filing cabinet where you can whisper to all the documents that live inside the filing cabinet. They can answer questions about themselves. They can inform you about how to move forward. But actually, the best thing behind this project folder is that you can upload example documents. Maybe you have a brand voice, maybe you have brand standards, maybe you have particular marketing language that your organization should be following, or even examples of how do you like to be represented in writing or on LinkedIn, or let's just say you are looking at a large document. Here are the top 10 things I am always looking for when I'm reading, a quarterly report. And all of those live inside those project files. That way, your project file is pre-trained how to answer just like you would and follow your organization's brand standards and write in a way that is more reflective of you. You are still responsible at the end of the day, though, Jack, for checking everything that comes out of AI. It's like if you went to a networking event and somebody whispered a rumor to you, it's just a rumor. And if you repeat it again and it's incorrect, that is actually on you for repeating a rumor. AI is just the same way. But there's some really great, easy ways to address that. If this is a very fact-based outcome, you actually can say to your model, I need you to cite all your sources. Show me exactly where you got this information from, what page was it on, what paragraph was it in. Give me the hyperlinked bibliographies. Find me 2 more sources to support this claim. But here's the kind of fun magic part. I love that it'll do that. It'll bring that information to you. I actually have it put all of that into a Word doc for me, let's say. And then I upload that to a secondary large language model. Maybe you're going from a ChatGPT to a Claude, to a Gemini, a Copilot, and then saying, hey, I tell you what, ChatGPT gave me this document. It's got a lot of facts, figures, statements. It feels a little shady to me. Your job is to find all the mistakes. Your job is to prove it wrong. Your job is to show me all of the ways that it didn't handle this task correctly. The models end up working back and forth with each other really, really well so that you now even have a faster way to ensure what you are repeating has been both verified and fact checked.
This is something that I've learned as well. Like you mentioned, the models work really well together. I'm gonna use one example that I've experienced firsthand. I use I've been coding a few things, vibe coding, if you want to call it that. I want to call it agentic engineering. So I've been working with Claude Code on a lot of things, and I found that Claude Code is very good at understanding the rules and getting to an MVP. And then ChatGPT, I almost see him as my senior engineer who loves to just stick to the rules. Every I needs to be dotted and T crossed. So I have ChatGPT Codex check the work of Claude Code to
I love
harden
that.
it.
And those are two great coding platforms.
So it's just a way in which to leverage the strengths of both. And I actually find it really interesting that we are really seeing an evolution of these AIs. And their strengths are just so different in every category that depending on what type of job you want, you probably are better suited hopping around a little bit.
You absolutely are. Start with one. Don't let it overwhelm you. But then absolutely, pay for one. Even if you are a small business, don't go with the free model. The tools are so superior. And honestly, it's worth the $20 a month, which is what, 4 Starbucks coffees maybe. It is worth the $20 a month to have access to superior tools. But then sign up for a second tool. Just do it in the free model so you have something to compare and contrast. Gemini, for instance, amazing at image and video production. All three of those models, and those happen to be my three primary horsemen, if you will, plus quite a bit of Copilot. Now, I will tell you, here's a really great way that I've been working with some investors lately on utilizing AI, and this one is a little bit unexpected. So the company that I work for, Answer Rocket, builds out unbelievable persona mapping and synthetic shoppers and synthetic customers. You, as an individual contributor, can actually research someone. You can pull from the entirety of their internet history. Where do they show up on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, in the news? And build out a predictive persona about that person. You can even use third-party tools like a crystal.ai, which is a disc analysis tool. From there, I want you to think about whether you are using, and I think ChatGPT and Claude are best at this, you can actually upload that predictive persona or synthetic shopper, if you will, to the model and then hit the voice mode button, not just the transcribe button, but the voice mode button. You've got about 10 voices to choose from, and tell it, I need you to take on the personality of this person I just uploaded to be either, discussing a contract with me. I'm going to be proposing a new opportunity to you, but your job is to work with me back and forth, acting as that person based on this prediction. I'll let you know when we're done, and then you're going to assess, how did I do? How could I do better to prepare for the live human presentation?
This is a great tactic. In fact, this is kind of a sidestep on this a little bit, is that I've even created a board of directors, if you will,
Mhm.
for my business. So it's like being able to talk to some of the gurus that I watch on YouTube, and I've read their books and what have you. And I've created these personas as my board of directors to get some real direct feedback.
Well, you and I are going to have to swap notes in because I also have a couple of different types of board of directors. And like you, I ran deep research on these people. I mean, I had to look at their YouTube videos, their TED Talks, scan their books, their blog posts, and really truly build out, first of all, a really great assessment of that person, but then loading them all into the same room, the same project folder in ChatGPT or in Claude, and saying, I need you to be available to me. Here are the things I'll be using you for. And I need you to self-identify who you are when you are answering my question. Feel free to argue with each other, by the way. We're going to make this a roundtable strategic discussion. And then I'm going to ask you to prove to me where you got your suggestions from, because we don't want to just assume that, any business suggestions it provides you are true. But if you are doing your research ahead of time, loading those personas, and then having a conversation with your board of directors, it is an unbelievable way to expand your knowledge and perspective.
Somebody who's looking to adopt AI right now, let's give them like some practical advice as to what models are the best at what particular thing. Like, a confused mind just never makes a decision. So let's try to clarify something there for them.
I love that. So the three main models that I use day in and day out, I actually use Claude more than any of them because I'm a big Claude cowork builder. So I've got a lot of agents running in the background for me, helping me prepare for my day, all of my meetings, podcasts like this. And so that happens to be where I spend my time. But I tell you what, Claude, Gemini, ChatGPT, they are all remarkably strong models. I think Chat is one of the best for its vast number of tools and ability to really personalize it to your use case. It's also the one most likely you're already using, but get to know it. But here's my favorite secret with that. Because they essentially don't come with an owner's manual, instead say to it, hey, I'm going to be using you. And I heard on, Jack Haas's podcast that there's a lot of hidden tools I'm not aware of. I'm a real estate investor or I'm a broker. I need you to tell me all of the tools that exist within the paid model and tell me how to use each of those to move my business forward. I need you to build each of those out into, a step-by-step methodology so that I can try them one at a time. But it is called meta prompting, where you actually ask the model to teach you how to use it. So I think chat is best because of its number of tools and certainly its popularity. Gemini, as I said, phenomenal. I love how easy it is to connect if you are a Google company. I mean, it is throughout my Google Drive now. I'm able to connect it to my email, my Google Drive, my Notebook LM, another phenomenal tool that comes with a Gemini license. Then it is also, I think, of the three, the best at image and video production, really, truly, through just the same voice iteration. And then Claude is really the rising star here because of Claude Code, Claude Cowork, and then it's standard chat. But it does harness you in a little tighter. You do reach the end of a conversation much more quickly, even on the paid model. So here's my secret with Claude, because for me, it is the one that is the most human and the one that is able to be the most self-reflective of your voice and the way that you would communicate. I'll have Chat or Gemini do a lot of the context-heavy, token-heavy research for me, build out the documents, find out more about the client, whatever that might be. I'll pull all of those together into documents, and then I'll just upload that document to Claude and say, I need you to read these documents, memorize everything that is in them, and now let's you and I pick up the conversation and really put that cherry on top.
That's interesting you bring that up, because Claude is the only model that I've used where I ran out of usage, like where it says, oh, you
Yes.
can come back in a couple hours kind of a thing. So that's a great tip associated with that. Well, Michelle, this has just been a fantastic conversation. I appreciate all of the insight and everything that you've given to so far. I'm going to direct everybody to your LinkedIn page, which is Michelle Hamilton AI. I'm going to have that as a clickable link in the show notes. But before we dive into the rapid fire and start closing out this episode, is there anything else we should have tried to hit on?
Gosh, I mean, we could probably talk for 3 hours, Jack, and never lose the train of thought. But what I want people to do is, if you're scared, if you're nervous, if you're not sure where to start with something that is in your everyday life. Plan a dinner, plan a trip, plan a garden. Then think about how you can apply that to business use cases. And if you're worried that AI is going to steal your information, it's going to put everything you type into it out there, I need you to ask yourself, are you already using Siri? Are you already using Alexa? Do you use LinkedIn, Facebook, or Instagram? Because it's too late. It already knows everything about you. We are a world where we are walking around and everything we say and do has been captured. Still be smart. Don't put your bank account information in there. Don't put your social security number information in there. But if you're worried that this is going to be the thing that's taking your identity, that's long since passed.
Appreciate that. Well, if you're ready, Michelle, we'll jump into the rapid fire and close out this episode.
Let's do it.
We're going to change it slightly because your position, but what lie do entrepreneurs often tell themselves?
You know what? That entrepreneurs often tell themselves they don't have enough money to hire employees. And although I have been an entrepreneur myself, I started my own AI company before I joined Answer Rocket. But here's the thing. If you identify the types of employees that you want and need, now think about what your ideal employee's job description would be. That is where you're going to start being able to use AI and some of those projects I was talking about, or get to know Cowork, so that you can actually create a synthetic employee to be your chief of staff. Think about how you can go from being a solopreneur to having a team, but it is an AI first team.
If you could go back in time and give your younger self a single piece of advice, what would it be?
Wow. You know what? It actually would be patient. Put in the time and pay really close attention to networking, making connections, and really hearing what everybody is thinking about and asking for, because it is one that has served me so well, whether I was working in architecture and construction or now leading a global AI team. And it is that human connection and really taking it to heart that helping others to solve their problems is one of the best things you can do for yourself and your business, not because it comes back to you, but because it makes us a more cohesive working planet.
Do you have a book recommendation, or what are you reading right now?
Wow. Do I have a book recommendation? I do have to tell you, I'm a huge Simon Sinek fan. So every time he comes out with one of his new books, thinking about, let's just say, his Leaders Eat Last book, I think it's a really phenomenal approach to leadership and designing teams that operate well for themselves, but also out in the community. So, although at the moment, I'm spending most of my time trying to catch up on all of the AI tools that are coming out so quickly. If I'm going to be looking at business and business use books, I always start with Simon Sinek.
Finally, and I might know the answer to this, what single process or tool have you implemented that has had the biggest time-saving impact?
Definitely Claude Cowork. And like I said, I've got a chief of staff, and every morning, and his name is George, by the way, George checks my calendar, checks my email, writes me a full dossier of the day, researches every person I'm meeting with, writes my email responses, puts them in my draft box, then checks my Slack for all the messages and suggests responses to that, and then captures all of my tasks onto a separate sheet and gives me my 3 must-do, cannot-fail tasks for the day.
Well, that's just fantastic. I really, again, appreciate your time, Michelle. Again, it is Michelle Hamilton AI. Clickable link in the show notes to head over directly to the LinkedIn profile. But really appreciate your time and hope you'll consider coming back again real soon.
Jack, this has just been a lot of fun. And I love that you know as much as you do about AI. I think we need to talk a lot longer.